Hey, welcome ladies and gentlemen to this tutorial where I show you how to create a responsive design website using a lot of Flexbox. Now Flexbox is very cool, so if you're not using it yet, you might as well start using it. All right, so it helps you to create very ridiculously easy responsive design. So let's look at this thing we have here. So if we go to responsive view mode, you see we have what should be a logo there, and we have a navigation here. We have a panel on this side, and we have another panel on this side. So if I now try to resize this like this, just notice that the boxes in here are moving below like this, and then at some point there's a breakpoint where this thing at the right came to the top and the other one came to the bottom, and the menu is gone. Now if I click here, that's when I see my menu. Click back and it's gone, and when I do this, things are back to normal. Also, just by the flick of a button here, I can swap these guys. This is the left panel. I can take it to the right by just changing one line of code here, and then now it's a right panel like this, and then everything still works exactly the same. And yet here it's on the right panel, it's still at the top. Even when it was on this side, it was still coming to the top when we go to the mobile view. So you can change a lot of things and be very flexible with things like this. All right, so let's learn something. All right, so to begin with, I've created a folder on my desktop. You can call the folder anything you want. In here, I have a few images. In the folder, I have the img folder with a few images there to use. And so all I need to do is create a file in here. So I'll open my text editor, Sublime Text, but you can use any text editor of your choice. VS Code or Notepad++ is fine. So create a new text document, and let's save it. So we're just going to save this one as home.html and save. Great. And now with Sublime Text, if I type HTML like this, let me put a title of responsive there, and we are good. Now it's important to note that in case you're using your own text editor, this line here is your own text editor that doesn't give you this text. This line right here is very important for responsive design, because when you put your design on a cell phone, this will help it to stretch to full width. If you don't have this, it's going to look wonky and stuff. It won't stretch to full potential on the screen. It will try to show the desktop version. Okay, so make sure that is there, and then we can move on. So now the thing to remember is that there are only two principles that I personally follow in creating responsive design. And if you can just master those two things, then you'll be golden. So number one is when using Flexbox. So we're going to use Flexbox, of course. So the first one is the use of Flexbox itself. So use Flexbox on the desktop view, okay? And then you disable it on the mobile view. So that's principle number one. Use Flexbox on the desktop view and then disable Flexbox on the mobile view. So you have to make sure that your design looks good on the desktop with Flexbox, and then when you remove all the Flexbox settings, it's going to still look good on the mobile version. Okay, so that's one thing. The second thing is media queries. So you need to know what media queries are, and a media query is simply a point that you set on your in your browser, in your code, that once the browser reaches a certain width, then you change your CSS to a different CSS. So you're just swapping CSS from one to another. This is what helps you to remove the Flexbox settings here when that media query arrives. Anyway, so let's see these things in in practice. So we're going to put some style tags here because I want to style a few things so that I can show you what I'm talking about and you can understand. So the first thing I want to do is add a div here, and then I'll put two more divs inside this one like this. Okay, so I'm just going to put a few classes. One will be called red, the other one will be called blue, like this, and then the other one will be called the container. Okay, so now I can just open my what's this, my file that I've saved here, double click to open it in a browser. So far I don't see anything, which is normal, but let's style these guys. So I'm just going to say dot container, and the container, of course it's a div, so it's going all the way left and right like this, right? But let me style red and blue. So I'm just going to say red dot red, and then I'll just add a height for red here, and I'll say maybe 200 pixels, and then I'll add a background color that is red. Okay, so let me duplicate this and change this to the blue guy. So, oops, what's going on here? So let's change that to blue, as simple as that. So as well, 200 pixels, and if I now refresh, this is what I see. So simple and straightforward. There's a div here and there's another div down here. Now, if I add flex to the container of these two ones, instead of going up and down like this, they're going to share the left and right space automatically. So if I go to the container and just say display flex, like so, just doing that alone is going to do this. Oopsie daisy. Okay, so maybe I needed to add a height now for this container. So let me add a height for this one of, I don't know, 500 pixels or something. Okay, what's going on? Container height, display flex. Okay, so the reason why they're not showing is because I need to tell these guys how much to flex. So here, what ratio they're going to share. So I'm going to say flex 1 for each. So in other words, they're sharing 1-to-1 ratio of this whole thing. So this guy is occupying 1 ratio of the space and the other one, the other ratio. So the number doesn't really matter. I can put 10, 10, as long as the numbers are the same, they will share equal space. But if one is sharing 5 while the other one is sharing 10, it means the other one will share half of the other one like this. So you see, this is twice, 2 of these can fit here. So this is how you can squeeze things along. If I put 1, for example, here, it would be a ratio of 1 to 10. And this is what we get. So 1 here, 10 on the other side. It's as simple as that. And then the second principle is the principle of media queries. So now, before we move on to media queries here, you see this display flex here. It has a flex direction. So I can say flex direction like that. So these are important things. There's one called row, okay, where it flexes. This is the normal flex. It flexes left to right on a row like this, a single row. Let me try that row reverse. Let's see what happens. And there we go. So row reverse is going to reverse the content of so even though these guys, as you can see, the divs, this one comes first, right? So they can swap and reverse like this using row reverse like that. So this one goes this way, the other one goes the other way, or you can put row like this. So these are very powerful tools that you can use to redesign things, right? So, and also the second one is column. Okay, so of course column also has column reverse the same way. So you see now they're flexing in the same manner. You see there's flex of 1 and a flex of 10 here. Is it 1 to 10? No, it's 2 to 10. So there's flex there too, flex 10. So there's ratio of 2 to 10, and then it's flexing in the column up and down instead of left and right. And of course, you can do a Uno reverse card like that and swap those guys like this. Okay, cool. Now, just that is enough to do what we want to do. But let me show you one more thing before we go to media queries. And this one is, if there are more items, instead of just, let's say red and blue, let me put margins on these guys. Let's just put margin and say maybe 4 pixels, just so we can see a line between them. Now, if I duplicate a few of these guys like so, this is what we're going to see. So you're going to see, now this is a bit confusing because the ratios are different. So let me make it simple and put just a flex of 1 for everyone involved. That's where it's easier to understand. So as you can see, they share the space equally. At first, only 2 of them were sharing the space, the same amount of space. Now they're squeezing in. And if I increase the number of these guys, oopsie, like that, you see that they still share the same amount of space. The space has not increased. The items have just gotten smaller because there's less space to share. Now, if I come back here to flex row, which is the default, like that, and refresh, this is what you see. So let me put this in responsive design mode like this. And as you can see, this is what happens. They get squeezed and squeezed up to the end like that. Okay, let me close that. But if you don't want this behavior, what you can do is in the container, you can tell it that wrapping around is allowed. They don't need to stay in the same row. So you can say flex wrap, we're allowed to wrap around. So let's see if that will actually work. So if I come back to responsive design view, let's squeeze them and squeeze them. You see that it's not really working at all. Now that's because it doesn't know really when there isn't enough space. There's no content in these boxes. So what I can do instead is to give each one of these boxes a minimum width they can't go below, or just give them a specific width, like say 200 pixels each, like so. And if I refresh now, wait a minute. Oh wait, width 200 pixels. Yes, what you can do instead of using width is you can use what is known as flex basis. So flex basis is just like how much one of them should squeeze, or that's like the minimum or something. You can think of it as width, but it can be height when you should think of it as height when it changes to flex direction column. It becomes the height, the flex basis thing. But look at that now. That's just the point at which the flex cannot go below that amount. That's what flex basis talks about. Because as you can see, it does stretch upward, but not less than 200 pixels there. So if you want it to be fixed, you can even give it a maximum width if you don't want it to go and say max width 200 pixels. There's probably, you can do this using just flex itself. So if I do that now, you see that it doesn't go bigger than 200 pixels, and then it can do that. And then if I want to push these guys to the center, as you can see now, they're kind of like floating to the left. If I want, I'll go to the container of this, and then I'm just going to say justify the content, and I can justify it in the center. Now, all these are things you can justify with space between, space around. So spend some time and test those as well. So as you can see now, we are floating here. Now, if I want to kind of like, instead of center, I want to go to the other side, I'll say flex end. So there's flex start, flex end, and center. So that's flex end. The default is flex start, like that. Justify content, flex start. Now, if I want to justify these guys in the very center itself, so here, for example, I've justified them in the center on the vertical axis. But what if I want to justify them top and down? I'll say align items and put center, of course. So if I do this now, they're aligned top and down as well as left and right. If you want to see the difference here, I can say align items flex end, like so, which will push them. It's supposed to push them to the bottom. Now, the reason they're not moving really is because the container doesn't have a, oh wait, it has a height of 500 pixels. So it's just that we can't see, but they are moving to the center. So what I would do instead, I'll say height 100 VH, so that it goes, the reason they just moved a little bit is because this has a limit of 500 pixels, the container. But if I do this now, the height of the container has gone bigger. So now they're justified in the center of up and down and also in the center of left and right, like that. So those are just the options that you can use. Okay, cool. So let me remove this align on top and down so we can actually see them like this. Okay, and also this thing where it's leaving this gap between the two. So you see there's a gap here that is too great. We don't really want this. So if you don't want that, you can change also align content, and then you say there's also flex start, there's center, and then etc, etc, flex end. So let's try with flex start, which will be the top like this, so they leave space like that, so that moves to the center like so. Oopsie daisy. Okay, like that. Or you can put flex end, which will push them to the bottom as well. So as you can see, they've gone all the way to the bottom like that. So there are times you may want to use this if you're creating maybe a graph or something. This can be useful like that. Okay, so flex start will do for us. Now the second principle, this was the first thing, using Flexbox you can design very intricate things without having to do much work. Now the second thing is media queries. So as you can see, this color is red right now, right? But using a media query, I can tell it at which width of the device should we change to a different set of CSS. Now the reason you might want to do that is because, like for example, right now we're using display flex to show this, but if we're on mobile view, we can remove the flex or change its direction to column instead of row using a media query. So the media query is what would tell us that we've reached that width that we want, and so we can change things. Now for now, I just want to change the color of this red thing here. That's all I want to do. Change this to a different color when a width reaches a specific level. That way you understand how media queries work. So to create a media query, just type at and then you say media like this. You put brackets and you do that like so. In here you put something like max width and then you give it a maximum width. In this case, let's give it maybe 600 pixels. So the numbers you give here are completely up to your design. Wherever you see that things are not looking good, they're becoming too squeezed, then you can add a media query, because you can add as many as you want. These are called breakpoints. So here what I want is, I want this item that's blue to change color. So I'll copy the style and put it in there like this. Now keep in mind that you can put min here if you want instead of max. Now what max means is that the maximum 600 pixels is when these will work. So they're going to work until we reach 600 pixels, then they won't work anymore, because that's the maximum at which they can work is 600 pixels. If I put min width, it means that's the minimum at which they work, which means they work when the screen is bigger. But I want these to work at mobile level, so that's why I'm using max width and 600 pixels. Now, since we already have these styles here, we just need to replace the ones that we want to change. So for example, in this case, it's just the background color. I just want to change it to purple. The rest I want to remain exactly the same, so I'll just remove them because I don't need to repeat them like that. So what I'm saying here is that once we reach a pixel level of 600 pixel and below, change the blue item to purple. Simple and straightforward. So let's do that and let's see if that's gonna work. So responsive design view, let's squeeze. And if you've already noticed, these guys have changed to purple down here at that point, okay, at 600 pixels. I can increase this to 800 pixel or any pixel count that I want, and it's going to work. So as you can see now, they change. See that the color change right there. Now, it's not only color change you can do, you can remove the flex, you can do anything, any styles that you added here, you can reverse them at that point. Very, very convenient. For example, container here, I may want to remove its flexiness. So I'll move this like that. And then instead of display flex, I'm just going to say display block maybe, which is the default for a container div. Like that. So if I now do this and squeeze it in, you see that when we get here, we have a display. The flexiness is gone at this point, but then it's back when we do that. Now this doesn't look very good, but what we can do instead of removing the display flex, we just change the flex direction. We just say flex direction and change it to column like this. So back here we do that. Boom. And then once we change it to column like that, okay. The problem is that when we change it to column, those guys need, they need to have heights, I think. Let me see if when I add heights, that's going to show anything. Oopsie daisy. Let's see here, container, flex wrap, flex direction row. This is by default, so let's remove it there. The container 100 VH, okay, that's fine. Max width. Let's put a minimum height of 100 pixels here so that, oops, what have I done? Minimum height. They've disappeared because they keep disappearing because they have no content in there. That's where the problem is. Flex basis 200 pixels. This should already work. So let me just try to add some content here a little bit so we can try to see something like that. There we go. So because we had no content, they're all squeezed up and all that. So, but you see that when we get to this point, things have changed. The flex direction is different. The problem is there's a lot of justification. Align content, flex start, flex wrap. Let's try to remove all that. Yeah, then it works a little bit better. But these are the principles I'm talking about here. So if we can use flex like this, you can really create any design of your choice. So with this in mind, let's actually create one look that we can use. All right, so let me remove everything that I've done so far and let's start some clean on a clean plate and do something more useful. Okay, so what I want to do is I'm going to create some tags. Now these tags really have nothing like main, just a tag, nothing special about it. So what I want to do is create a menu where I have an image on the left and then some menu items on the right. So here I'll have image. I have an image folder in here and it's img. I'll put a file 01.jpg as my logo. So this one will be logo. I'm going to add a class of logo like this. This one I'll add a class of nav holder. That's what will hold the navigation. And then on the other side I'll have another div which will be the nav itself. So I'm just going to say navigation here. And then I'll have a few more divs here, which will contain the links for the navigation. And here this one is home, like that. Then I can duplicate this a few times and add some stuff here like contact us and about us, posts, and maybe, I don't know, categories or something. Okay, so great. We have this here. So when designing these things, you have to keep in mind that if you have to try and make sure that when you remove the Flexbox, what remains looks good on mobile. That's one thing you have to keep in mind. So you try to keep that in mind and things are going to work out brilliantly. Yes, yes. So we have this, we have that here. So let's try and style this. So if I come back here and refresh, this is what we get. We just have this large image here, and which is the logo there. So let me fix that a little bit. I'll just say logo and give it a width of 100% so that it doesn't go beyond its container. Now the problem is the container is the entire width, so let's fix that as well. So I'll get the nav holder here, and what I'll do is add a display of flex on it. So because I've added flex, this is the thing, it's going to flex both these two guys here, the nav and the logo. So let's see that in action. So now we have the logo here and we have the nav there, they have stretched. Now, just like before, let's give them how much we want them to flex. So the logo, I want this one to just flex 1, and then the nav holder, I want it to flex maybe 10, like that. So that's a ratio of 1 to 10. Oops, what's going on here? It's not the nav holder that should flex, it's the nav itself, because these are the kids in here. So let me add one, that's dot nav, and put that flex there. Okay, and just like that, we have one here and the other there. But there's padding and margin on the body itself, so let's remove all of that. So that's important. So I'm just going to say body and say margin 0 pixel, padding 0 pixels. And also I just want a better font family, Tahoma, and that's it. And then secondly, we need to add to all the elements. So if you put a star like this, then you are targeting all elements, so use that with caution. Okay, so here I want to do the box sizing and change it to border box. Now what this does is that it's just better for styling when you do this, because let's say you have a box that's 200 pixels wide, 200 pixels, right? And then you add some padding to it. What will happen? Padding of 10 pixels, right? The width of the container will change to 210 pixels because it has to account for that padding you've added. But if we say border box like this, we're telling it that it shouldn't increase the width of the item, it should just squeeze the things inside it a little more, and that way it's better for styling. So just trust me on this one, adding that will save you a lot of headaches, especially when dealing with inputs. Okay, so we have that right on the edge, but these guys are top down. I want them to be next to each other, so of course we're going to use flex on those guys as well. So we just grab the nav and tell it to flex every item inside it. So the flex only happens to the immediate children. The flex is not applied to the inside children like this, no, just these immediate kids. So we'll grab the nav, which is right here, and also give it a display of flex, because why not? Let's refresh, and this is what we get. Okay, let's give it a background color so we can see what's really going on. So we'll add a background color, and we'll say let's see CCC, something like that. So that's something. And then what I want is for each nav item. So these guys inside, I'll name them nav item. So I'm just going to put a class and say nav item like that. Okay, great. So let's come down here and say nav dash item. Okay, so on these guys, I just want some padding of 10 pixels. That's pretty much it. And maybe I can give them a specific width. I'll use flex basis, which is kind of like width, and say 100 pixels, maybe something like that, like I had shown earlier. This is what happens. And let me change text align to center like that. Okay, pretty cool. Now they're closer to the top than the bottom, right? And there is a fix for that using flex. So we'll go to the main container that contains them and we just say align items center. And once we do that, they're going to move to the center like so. Now this may be too high, the whole navigation thing. The nav holder itself, where is that? Right there. So I'm just going to say maybe max height. Let's give it a max height, maybe 50 pixels, something like so. And there we go. So depending on what you want, maybe let's give it 60 pixels there. And then the image itself, the logo, I want it to have an object fit of cover, not contain, but cover. That way it doesn't squish like it's doing, it will be cropped instead, something like that. Okay, pretty good so far. Now, if you want to see what's going on with the flex, you can just right click, inspect the element, and go to the items here. And if you look closely, it tells you which one has a flex box by the flex here. And if you click on that, it actually shows you what's happening on that flex. So you see there's a flex thing here, there's another container there. But if we move a bit closer inside and click on the other flex here on the nav, it will show us how things are flexing. So you see they're centered like this, they're justified in the center and they're here, and this whole area is empty. Okay, pretty cool. Now, if you want this text to move the other side, you can go to the nav, which is this one that's holding these items. So that's the nav right there. And you can say justify content center, for example. And this is going to center the items. Or you can use flex start and flex end. So in this case, let's use flex end so they can go to the far end, like so. Okay, so from there we have our menu, which is pretty cool. Now I can click on this. Let's go back to responsive view and let's see how far we can take this. Now this guy right here is getting too squeezed. So if you don't like that squeezing, squishy, you can give it a minimum width. So width is 100%, but you can say min width and say it can go below 100 pixels like that. And so it's going to become resilient like so. Okay, very cool. Now these guys are not allowed to wrap around. This is why they are squeezing each other like this, because this thing has a maximum height or something, which I added. So what we can do is monitor this until we get to a point where we think, okay, at this point we can just shift things around. A good marker is 992, which Bootstrap uses, so I use that as well. So anything above this, we leave the menu as it is, but anything below, we're going to change the menu fundamentally. So what we will do is we're going to push this thing down. That's what we will do. So if we look closely here, let's come down here. We have this thing that has a flex over here, okay? So these two are sharing a space, right? this one, and this one. Now, if we remove the flex on here, what happens? These things are allowed to roam free, top and bottom. That's what's going to happen. So nav holder right there. So I'm just going to copy this, and let's come down here. Now we're going to add a media query like I had said. So we're going to say media, and then we'll say max width, and then let's put something like 992 pixels like there. Oh, something seems off. Anyway, the nav holder there, dot nav holder, like that. Okay, so in here I can change the flex direction of it to column. So this is the nav holder. I'll change it to column here. So if I refresh, you see at 992 things change. Here things are like this. Here things change. So now this part is down here. The image is at the top there. All right, which may be something you want or not. Now what I want really is for this to kind of disappear and this to be a small piece here still, and then squeeze to the we can have a button here that drops down the menu. So I want this guy to just squeeze to the corner over here. So that's entirely up to you what you want to do. Or if you like it like this, what you can do is just limit the width, the height of the image. So the image is called logo. So we can just grab this and put it inside here on the media query as well, so that when things get to this point, we can have different CSS for our logo. Now the height here, we can say height and give it a very specific height of 100 pixels. The other things we can remove because they are repeated. Since they're already at the top here, it will just keep using them since we didn't override them here. And this is what you get. So you have this thing, and then you can have that thing over there at that point. Okay, so it really depends on what you want. Now I want a menu button over here. So let me try and so instead of just having this on its own like this, what I want to do, because it comes up like this, I can have a container instead that holds this image in there, and then so I can add another item there. So instead of just having it like this, I will put it inside a div like so. Okay, so at this point now, logo should go to this one because that's where we are there. But now I have logo inside and there's an image there. So and I want to have a menu button over this side here. So since this is now the logo, I need to account for the image inside it because this image is going to overlap now since it hasn't have any styles yet. You see that? So what I'll do is I'll say logo image, the image inside the logo, and I'll give it a max width of 100 pixels. That way it doesn't go beyond what it shouldn't. So look at that. That's what we get. Boom, 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 boom. The only problem is this is not flexing well anymore because look at that. Not good at all. Okay, so maybe let me try to add better styling to this one. Instead of max width 100, we're just going to put 100% width there. Let me see if that helps. Ooh. Okay, that's fine. What I would do instead is let me put another item in here so that they are flexing together like so. div, and then logo should have a display of flex so that these two are on the same page. So where we are here, I'll just put display flex so that even the contents of that is flexing right there. Okay, now we have these two that needs flexing. So let's add a class here, and we're going to call this one menu button because I want to just add a button there. So we have the image here, and we're just going to say flex 1, and then the menu button itself dot menu button is going to flex maybe 10, like that. Okay, so maybe 1 to 10 is a bit much, so let's put 2 to 10. Okay, so something like that, and boom. Now the problem is when we get here, because this is still flexing in there. Now instead of having it flex, we can have this disappear or put it at 0. So what I want is this menu button we've added, which is messing things up, to be removed when we get up here, but then it should only be active when we are down here to the mobile section, right? But still, this is too much, so let's do 1.5 flex. Let's see that. Okay, so you can reduce it as much as you want, maybe 1.1 until you like it. So it goes really small, so you can add more breakpoints there to make sure that it's still big when it gets to. Or what you can do is, let's put a flex of 2, and then let's put, or maybe 1.5 is fine. Let's put a minimum width like I had put previously, 100 pixels, like that. Okay, that way it doesn't go beyond a specific level. So there we go, we have that. Boom. Okay, so here there's still this item showing, so we should remove that item at some point, which is the menu button. So here, menu button, we should just put display none. So let's see if that helps. Okay, so that attaches properly this side, and then the image should have object cover. So let's move that from our logo and put it there so that it's always cropped nicely. And there we go. All right, so now since our button has disappeared there, it also still disappears here, but we want it on the mobile view. So that's the menu button. Here the display is none, but then when we get to mobile view, which is right here, we can just add it there. So back here, let's remove the flex because it remains the same, but display becomes block, which is the default for div items. Okay, so from here what you can see is we are doing boom, all right, and then back boom, like that. Okay, so pretty cool. And so the reason I have this space is because I want a button here that will drop down the menu down here. Also, as you can see here, this menu, when we get to this point, I want it to be, the names to be up, down, and we know already how to do this. I want them to go this way in the column. So we change its flex to column. So this one is nav, of course. So we're just going to do nav and just say flex direction and put column like this. Okay, so there we go. So when we are here, then boom, and then boom, like that. Okay, so now I want to move these items over this away, right? And let's look at what's happening here because there's a lot of gap between these guys. So let's inspect and go to the nav holder and click on the flex thing. And as you can see, this is what we get. See, there's gaps in there. So I want these guys to flex one so they can go all the way left, right like this. It will help them to breathe a little. So what I would do is while we are here, we need to do something for nav items. because as you can see, flex basis is 100 pixels, which means that's the limit they can go. Then also text align, I want to change it to left. So I'll copy this whole thing right about here, paste it like that. Boom, like so. Only the padding remains the same. Flex basis, let's do that 100%. And then text align, let's put that at left. Okay, so now when we refresh, this is what we get. Text align doesn't seem to work. So instead what we're going to do is maybe we're going to say, what can we do? What we can do is tell it to align to the left. Oh wait, nav item, text align left. That isn't working at all. So let's try align items flex start. So since we are in flex mode anyway, that isn't working either. So let's try align content. How come this is not working? Okay. These are probably items for this here. So let me cut this and try here. Nope. Let's justify content. Flex. Let's try flex end just to see if it will move. No, it's not moving. Okay, so what's going on? So in here, you can, it's important to know what's going on. Let's refresh. So back, we go to the flex thingy here, click on flex, and let's see what's happening. So as you can see, the problem is still, these guys are not going completely, so the text align can work, but these guys are just in the center here, chilling, so they shouldn't be there. So flex basis did not work. So what we're going to do instead is use the nav itself. So we've changed the flex direction, but we're going to tell it to flex basis 100%. This should have worked just fine. Let's try width before I try adding something flexy there. Okay, so that worked just fine. Sometimes the simple things are the easiest solution. So width 100%, and that works. Look at that. Okay, pretty good. Okay, so while we are at it here, let's do down here. Let's organize our thing here. What I want is to have a div on the right here, and then have another container on the left. And then when we squeeze, just like we've been doing with these, when we reach a certain breakpoint, everything goes top down like that. It just relaxes and no longer flexed in this direction. So let's try that. So what I'm going to do is put a div here, and I'll put a class. I'll just say main content like that, and then also I'll put a div in here. This one will have a class of left container. Now you keep in mind these are arbitrary because they can actually move. Let me change container to panel, it's easier to type. So left and right panel like this. Okay, pretty good. And let's put some content in here. So here I'm just going to put some, let's just put some images in here, right? Or let's put divs and then put images, because usually that's what you're going to do. We'll call the div a card like that, and then this card will contain an image inside it. The image path is image. I'll just try 01.jpg like that. Okay, cool. So one card in there and another card in here. So I just want to add comments so that we can see where our cards start and where the cards end. So I'll do end end card like that. Okay, great. Alrighty then I can duplicate these guys so that we have quite a number of them. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, the code is messed up here, but what's important is that it works. Anyway, before I go to this one, I'll just copy the other one so we can see what's going on clearly. It's better to ease up. Okay, so there we go. This one I will move back. All right, now if I show this, it's going to be a mess. So let's put some styling first. And let's go to the main point here. So I'm just going to say .card. I'll start with the image first that's in the card. And then I'll just say width 200 pixels, height 200 pixels, right? And then I'll do the card itself and width 200 pixels as well, like that. Okay, good. So from there we have some limitation, and here the cards are. Oh, what's going on here? So they're in the left panel. So let's copy this left panel. Right panel there. Okay, I actually do not understand why they're where they are here, but hey, to each their own. So what I'll do is put object fit cover so that they're not squeezed like that. Then let me put one now for left panel and use display flex in there. Let me allow flex wrap to happen. Okay, wrap. Okay, then let's put a margin on each one of these. Margin 10 pixels. That should do just fine. So refresh, and there we go. So the problem is they are part of the flex here, so I think I may have put them in the wrong place. So I put them inside this nav holder, which is not right. So that's where the problem is. So I'm going to move this div here. That's why I was wondering what's going on. Okay, so the nav holder should just hold the navigation. Okay, so this ends there. Then we start another div here that ends here. So let me push this one a little bit back so it's more clear what's going on. Shift tab like that. Okay, good. Let's refresh, and there we go. So we have these items here, and as you can see, they can resize just fine. It's just that when we move this guy down here, they are not responding, and I am definitely not sure why. I think it's the height that I set for this guy. Where is this? The nav holder. I set a max height of 60 pixels. So let me remove that. I think it's responding to that. So what I'll do is right here in the mobile version, it's the nav holder, right? Yes, it's the nav holder. So I can simply just add it here and say max height auto, like that. And let's try again. Oops. Let me see if it's the max height that's causing all of this. One moment. Where is nav holder? I'm just going to change the style there. Yeah, that's the one. I thought so. So instead of putting a max height, let me just put a height like so, because that's easier to change later. Let's go back here. Okay, so it still works. Max height, I have no experience with that much. So here I'll just say height, because I know height can have auto like that, which is the default, and there we go. Okay, so back here we have this, and then we have that. Now I want to justify these guys onto the center instead of leaving a gap here. So that's the left panel. So I'm just going to say justify content center like that. so they can be centered left to right like this. But then we need a panel here that we are not seeing yet. Also, this left panel, I want a slight change of background color, a very subtle or white. So let's go to right panel now. Right panel. Now here the content holder should have, let me put a background color, and this one I'll make it a bit darker, so DDD or even CCC, like that. And let me copy the items from the left panel and put them in the right panel so that it has some content. All right, so paste, and there we go. So as you can see, as predicted, there's one guy at the top, one div, and another div at the bottom. But this one doesn't have flex, so that's why these items are not behaving properly. So what we'll do is right panel here. Let me just get everything here. Wrap, justify content, except the background color. So everything else I will copy like that. And when I do that, you can see that they are behaving in a much nicer way, as you can see. So if I move it like this is what you see. So I want this to be my mobile view version. So as you can see, I have no flex on these two boxes and they're behaving quite right. But above here, I want this guy to be on the right side here. So to achieve that, the thing that holds these two guys is the main content, the left panel and right panel. So let's put a class there and say display flex. So of course it's going to flex left and right. And let me give how much each one of these should flex. For now, I'll just say flex 1, like that. And so as you can see, they're flexing left and right, like so. Let me darken the other one a bit more because it's CCC. Let's try AAA, which is much lower. And so it's much darker, just so you can see what's going on. Okay, so that's what's happening. They're sharing half the space, but I want this other one to share the right panel, the left panel to be bigger, maybe by 2 or 3 times the ratio. Okay, for now we'll leave it at that and squeeze it and squeeze it. Boom. Boom, like that. Now I want when we reach this point right here, so maybe let's move it a little bit to, let's say 800 pixels. I want it to snap and go down here instead. Okay, so let's go down here, and we want it to snap because we want to change the flex direction of main content. So I'll just add main content here if I haven't added it already. Let me just add it there. Let's move those boys here. Boom. So main content, I'll change the flex direction to column at that point. That's all I need to do. Boom, and that happens. So if I move like this, you see now it's on this side, like that. Boom, and then boom, it's down here. Very cool. Now, if you notice when I do this, look at the gap that's left here. And this is for a funny, weird reason. If I go to the, what are these guys? Card, right here. Let me put a background color for card, which is red, just so we can really see what's going on. You see what's happening is that the card is longer than it's supposed to be. That's because Flex will stretch everything to fit the default value for Flex. What is that? Flex, wait, what's the, anyway, the default is stretch, but we can use Flex start. So what I would do is the thing that contains the cards is main content. So what I would tell it is that, wait, is it align items? It's align content and say Flex start. So there we go. Ah, apparently not. Let's try align items. Oh wait. See, I'm adding this to the wrong thing. I'm supposed to add it in the panel itself. Sorry about that, because that's the one with the display flex. Okay, so it only affects the direct children. So let's try again. Align content, flex start. Let's see that, and there we go. So they're back to normal like that, behaving in a proper manner. So let's remove our red background color because we don't need that anymore. Okay, pretty good. Okay, very cool there. There we go. And everything seems to be working fine. So top, bottom. So you can have as many panels as you want, and then they're going to line up in the mobile view like that. Okay, so that handles that. What I can do is just, for better appearance, I'm going to just change these guys to different images. Yes, 2, 3, 5, and let's go 4. Yeah, just for variety there. Yeah, something like that. Okay, pretty good. Now what I want is for this menu to have a drop down here so that we complete the thing here. So you can also add a footer here, no worries. The footer is just the box at the bottom there, it doesn't need anything special. Okay, so with these guys, I want a button here where I can click that says menu, and then it will drop this down. So let's do that rather quickly before I run out of steam. Okay, so what we'll do is, this is the menu button right here. So I'm just going to write text menu over in there, and there it is, looky there. Now if I go, it's inside a Flexbox right now, so if I inspect the element and the flex that holds these guys, I'm going to see what's happening. So there's this and there's that. So if probably on menu button I just go and there's nothing inside it, I just say text align right, it will move my text to the right side. That's good. Let's add some good padding there as well. So let's say padding maybe 10 pixels. Let's see that in action, and there we go. In fact, let me add a line. The menu button's parent is the logo. So if I go to logo right here in the mobile view, and then I say align items and use center, that's the align for top down. If I refresh, you see it moves the menu button to the center, which is pretty cool. So now all I want is to be able to click this whole area, even though I click here or there, to lower this thing, right? So as you can see now if I go up like this, you see it's gone, and when I come down like this, you can see that menu button over there, which is pretty cool. So let's hide this guy first. So I'm just going to say height. I'll give it a very specific height of 0 once we are in mobile view. So that's the, where is this? This is the nav itself, just this part that contains the menu. So where is nav? Right here. We change its flex direction, but then we give it a height of 0 pixels like this. So if I do that, I don't see any difference whatsoever. Let's try to hide the overflow. Let's try overflow hidden. Maybe it has reduced in size, but we just can't see it. Nah, probably not. Okay, so let's remove the overflow a second. What I want to do is change the flex basis, because just like when the flex direction is raw, the flex basis is about the width, but when it's in flex direction column, it becomes the height. So let's try that, and there we go, it's gone. but we can still see the content here because it's squeezed in there. So let's do overflow hidden so that whatever is overflowing from the div is disappeared. Okay, that's cool. Now all I want is to click this button or anywhere here and have it come back. Okay, so what I would do is I don't want to use JavaScript, I just want to use some CSS. So CSS alone, I can use a checkbox. Okay, so let me give this checkbox an ID and I'll call this one menu checkbox. Very original name right there. So let's see what we have there. So we have a checkbox. The advantage of a checkbox is it maintains its state. If I click on it, it maintains that, which means if I can use that to open the menu, that would be nice. So what I can do with this checkbox is I go here, let me grab that. I can put this in the mobile view of things. Yeah, let's do that. So say menu checkbox like that, and also up here, menu checkbox. Wait a minute. Anyway, I'll leave that for a second. So menu checkbox here, I want to see what happens when it's checked like this. So make sure you don't leave a space here. It leaves a space for some reason, but not a good idea. It doesn't work if you do. And in here, what I want is when it's checked, I want it to transform, just so you can see that this works. And the scale to 2, like that. So if I click on it, it should grow bigger, but it's not growing bigger. So menu, yeah, I've put dot, but it should be hash because it's an ID. Sorry about that, refresh. And there we go. So when I check it, look at that. That's what happens. Now, if I want a transition, I can also put a transition and it works just fine. But let's not waste time. Let's go directly to the menu itself. Now, if I want, I can put a tilde key like that, which is just above shift tilde key above your tab key, I think. Or if it's a child that I want to affect, I'll put an arrow like that. But I want to affect a sibling, so I'll put that tilde key. And the sibling I want to affect is the nav view. See, these are on the same line, they're siblings. So I can have it affect the nav when it's checked. So instead I'll do dot nav here. And this style will be for the navigation. But because we can't see the navigation, we won't see any transformations. What we need to do is check on the, where did we change the flex basis? We did flex basis 0, but then here I would do flex basis, let's try maybe 100 pixels. Let's do that. Let's tick. And as you can see, we can see things like that, but this is too small. Let's put 400 pixels like this. Yeah, there we go. Too big again. Let's try 300 pixels. Now you can set things like height as well. No big deal here. Why are things not working out as intended? Okay, so flex basis is probably not the right thing here because it's affecting the sharing of. But it's fine. I think what I can do is I can say something like, where is nav item here? I can put a minimum height here of 100 pixels. Let's see what that does. But then the flex basis will hide everything. This is where the problem is. So what to do here? Okay, so what we can do instead is this. Let me remove that. Okay, so what we'll do is put overflow on the navigation itself instead of overflow hidden when things happen, which is right here. When we change the flex basis, we can also change the overflow to auto. That way, in case there's too much content, it will scroll this menu right here. But at least now it can hide and show like that. But I want this ride a bit smoother. So what I would do is the menu, the main content itself, no, the nav. Where is nav over here these days? There we go, nav. I'll put a transition so that it can transition everything we change. So say all, let it take 0.5 seconds. Let's put an easy ease like so. And let's refresh. So if I now do this, you see this is what happens with that. Okay, pretty cool. Now, if you don't like the transition, you can inspect the element and then go to nav is right here. Click on it and you will see transition somewhere here, which is right here. Click on the transition and you can start editing it to suit your needs like that, or even take it in reverse, which I kind of like doing sometimes. Makes it bouncy. Let's see that. See? Not really. Anyway, just find one of these that are already like backward here. Quite good. So if I look at that, it's got a little bounce to it like this. Very cool. So once you set that, I don't know why I clicked away. Once you set that transition, which is cubic Bezier, just copy it and add it to your thingy. Where is this? Right over here, like so. Okay, much better. Now we don't need this guy. See, we want to click here instead of there. So the problem is, if I move my input, cut it and move it into the menu item here, like so, it won't work anymore. This is the problem. So if I do this and refresh, I'll see it right there, but look at that, it doesn't work anymore because this guy and this guy are no longer siblings. So let's undo that. Instead, what we'll do is, there's this thing called a label. Very cool stuff. Now a label, what a label does is, if I say this label is for this item right here, it means it doesn't matter where I put the label on the page. If I click the label, it's going to activate this because it's for that. So I'll change this to a label instead and tell it that this is for this item. And so when I click on anything here, it's going to activate this item. So refresh. This remains here, but if I now click there, look at that. Very cool. So all I have to do is hide this guy. So I left right here. Display none. That way it's invisible. Apparently not. Menu checkbox. Oh, that's because it should have a hash because it's not a it's an ID. Boom, boom. Okay, so this is what we have now, mobile version. And if I do this, we have that. Okay, so this one, normal version, and then boop, mobile version. Now I want the mobile version to start out disappeared. No, we don't have to click here first. So in order for that to happen, we need to make sure that the moment we reach, where is this? Nav, right here, nav. Once we get here, height is 0 pixels. Oh, apparently it already should work. Apparently. Okay, let's do this. Yeah, because if we refresh the page in this mode and then move it, oh, what's happening? I saw something there. There's a point at which, so I guess it's my slow computer. Maybe because I'm recording the screen, that's why. But if I just pause like this, I see it for a second and then it disappears. But anyway, you won't see that because mobile devices are not shaking around, changing their width and all that. It's just when you are on a mobile, you just see it like this, and that's what you do. So here you can put your icons and all that so that it's much nicer and much cleaner. Looks much better than my design. So mine is definitely not about design. It's just to help you resize things on mobile as needed. Okay, so hopefully you've learned something. Let me reduce the color of this one a little bit. Where is that? D, or is it AAA? I can put that at D. Let's see. Yeah. So it's just slightly different. Okay, so this is the thing here that we have created. Hopefully you have learned something. Let me change that logo to a different color. Let's see for a second here. Just want to see something like that. Okay, so you can have your logo, your menu here, and everything working. All right, so I hope you have learned something new from this tutorial and how to make things responsive. Now, remember one thing we didn't cover. These things can swap right here. Let's say, for example, let's go to responsive again. If when I move down here, I want this darker thing to be at the top, I can switch these guys. So keep in mind, come down here. There's this where main content, we change the direction to column. We can change it to column reverse like that. So keep in mind, we can do that. And you see now, this thing that was on the right here now goes to the top instead of the bottom automatically. So it comes to the top here, and the one that was on top comes down here. So you can use that to swap things around when you're creating menus. Also keep in mind that what we're doing here, you can replace the home menu with a side menu, but put it on the other side instead, so that it has that, you know, that admin type menu, which you can use instead. We can show that by going to main content. Where is main content? On the top here, right there. I can change the flex direction to row. It's still on row, but I'll do row reverse, and this can swap like this. Look at that. So now we have swapped things. This one is at the beginning here, is on the left side, and everything still works exactly the same. Look at that. Okay, pretty cool. So experiment, test a few things, see what works for you, what you like, etc. And make some cool websites. All right, so I'll see you in another video.